How about this? AI is no longer just a tool in China's fashion industry. It's becoming the industry's backbone. That's the kind of shift we're talking about today.
And it's not just fashion. We're also diving into a constitutional standoff in Israel and the Nasdaq's best quarter since 2020. Let's get started.
Welcome to DeActa Daily Digest. I'm Joseph.
And I'm Juniper. Here are today's top stories.
Let's start with artificial intelligence and fashion in China. This isn't just about automating tasks or improving efficiency. It's about fundamentally changing how people discover, create, and consume fashion. AI is becoming the infrastructure, not just the accessory.
What's fascinating is how this shift is being driven by a combination of policy, technology, and consumer behavior. Shanghai's action plan for 2026-2028 highlights AI plus fashion as a priority, and national policies are formalizing frameworks like AI plus consumption. It's like they're laying the groundwork for a whole new ecosystem.
And it's not just about the technology itself. The way people shop is changing. Instead of the old search, filter, purchase model, we're seeing a new cycle. Ask, recommend, purchase. AI is essentially becoming a personal assistant for every consumer.
That's a huge shift. And for brands, it means they need to adapt or risk becoming invisible. If your brand isn't optimized for these AI-driven recommendation systems, you're out of the game. That's where generative engine optimization, or GEO, comes in.
GEO is like the next evolution of SEO, but it's tailored for generative AI. Companies like Trendy Tech are leading the way with frameworks that include structured brand knowledge systems, scenario-driven Q&A mapping, and multimodal content integration. It's about making your brand machine-readable.
And it's not just about visibility. Trendy's founder, Huina Mao, describes GEO as a foundational transformation. It's about preparing for what she calls the agent era, where AI systems don't just assist but actively shape consumer decisions.
But there's also an ethical dimension here. With all this focus on optimization, there's a real risk of manipulation. Mao acknowledges this and emphasizes the need for compliant, scientific approaches to ensure these systems are trustworthy.
On the flip side, you've got the luxury sector taking a more subtle approach with what they are calling quiet AI. This is about embedding AI in a way that enhances the customer experience without making the technology itself the focus.
It's a fascinating concept. Chat Labs, for example, is designing systems where AI handles the backstage work, like data analysis and personalization, while human staff focus on the emotional, front-facing aspects of service. It's like the tech version of quiet luxury.
And then there's the creative side of things. Look AI's fashion design agent is a perfect example. It's not just a tool, it's a collaborator. It can acquire information, understand context, make decisions, and even execute tasks. That's a game changer for designers.
It really is. It shifts the creative process from a linear pipeline to an interactive, human-machine co-creation loop. But it also raises questions about originality. How do you preserve the human touch when machines are doing so much of the heavy lifting?
That's a tough balance to strike. But it's not just about creativity. It's also about global competitiveness. Chinese brands are using AI to boost cross-border performance, with some seeing a 280% increase in product hit rates. That's transformative.
But it's not all smooth sailing. Regulatory constraints, integration costs, and the need for technical talent are significant hurdles. And then there's the tension between speed and originality. It's a complex landscape to navigate.
Ultimately, the big takeaway is that visibility in the AI era isn't just about being seen by humans. It's about being understood by machines. If AI can't comprehend your brand, it can't recommend it. That's a paradigm shift.
Speaking of shifts, let's move to our second story, the constitutional standoff in Israel. The government has refused to implement a high court ruling, escalating tensions between the executive and judiciary.
This is a textbook case of a separation of powers crisis. The cabinet's decision to ignore the court's order is unprecedented and challenges the very foundation of the rule of law.
The dispute centers on the Second Authority for Television and Radio, which regulates commercial TV and radio. The High Court had restored the previous council after finding irregularities in the government's appointments, but the cabinet is refusing to recognize that ruling.
And they're framing it as a separation of powers issue, arguing that the court doesn't have the authority to overrule statutory laws. But critics see it as an attack on judicial independence and democratic norms.
The timing is also suspicious. Some say the government's move is designed to block the sale of Reshet 13, a major TV network, to high-tech investors. It's not just a legal battle, it's a fight over media independence.
Opposition leaders are sounding the alarm. Yair Lapid called the government's refusal to accept the court's ruling illegal, while Naftali Bennett warned that it could sow chaos and undermine the state itself.
It's a high-stakes situation with implications far beyond Israel. If the executive branch can simply ignore judicial rulings, what does that mean for the checks and balances that are supposed to underpin a democracy?
And it's not just about the immediate issue. This could set a dangerous precedent for how governments handle judicial decisions in the future. It's a sobering reminder of how fragile democratic norms can be.
Let's shift to something a bit more optimistic, at least on the surface. The Nasdaq just posted its best quarter since 2020, driven largely by semiconductor stocks.
It's a great headline, but the details are more nuanced. While the Nasdaq was up 21.4% for the quarter, June itself was a mixed bag. The gains were concentrated earlier in the quarter, and the late session rally on June 30th was driven by a rebound in semiconductor stocks.
And that's the thing. Broad market participation was limited. The session's gains were heavily influenced by the biggest players in the semiconductor and technology sectors. It wasn't a broad-based rally.
Exactly. And while semiconductors are benefiting from AI-related demand, their valuations are still sensitive to interest rates and growth expectations. But it's a volatile space.
The split within the technology sector is also fascinating. Hardware suppliers like chip makers are seeing immediate benefits, but platform and cloud providers have a longer road to prove their investments in AI will pay off.
And that's where interest rates come into play. Higher rates reduce the present value of future earnings, which is a big deal for tech companies that rely on long-term growth projections. The market is watching the Federal Reserve closely.
Second quarter earnings will be critical. Investors want to see if the demand for semiconductors and AI infrastructure is translating into broader revenue growth. If it's just the chip makers benefiting, the rally could lose steam.
So, the big question is whether this is the start of a durable uptrend or just a temporary rebound. The answer will depend on earnings, rate expectations, and whether the gains can spread beyond the semiconductor space.
It's a lot to unpack, but that's what makes these stories so fascinating. Each one is a snapshot of a larger transformation, whether it's AI reshaping industries, political systems being tested, or markets navigating new dynamics.
Absolutely. And they all remind us that change, whether technological, political, or economic, is never straightforward. It's complex, messy, and always evolving.
Well said. And on that note, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. Until next time.
Until next time.